This level of cyanide in Haggart Creek could potentially affect fish.
Cyanide has been found in a creek downstream from a landslide at a Yukon mine. The heap leach failure at Victoria Gold's Eagle mine near Mayo sent 4 million tons of material crashing down, and about half of that escaped containment areas. Within that material is a cyanide solution used in processing at the mine, and we now know that solution has made its way into the environment and some water. Good evening, I'm Megan Roberts. More than a week after that landslide at Victoria Gold's Eagle mine, we have an answer to one of the biggest questions on people's minds. Elevated cyanide levels have been detected in a nearby creek. The Yukon government revealed results of its first batch of water testing today. Jackie Hong tells us what they found.
Energy, Mines and Resources Minister John Stryker says some water samples have come back positive for cyanide. They're mostly very low, except in what Stryker calls a sample of concern. Water taken from nearby Haggart Creek came back at 0.04 milligrams per liter.
This level of cyanide in Haggart Creek could potentially affect fish. Whether this concentration of cyanide in the water will actually affect fish depends on other chemicals in the water.
The Yukon government will now undertake fish toxicity testing. It will continue to test water in the creeks around the mine several times a week and also plans to start testing groundwater. But besides cyanide, there's another mounting concern, the possibility of another slide.
This morning, there was a technical meeting between Na-Cho, Nyäk, Dawna and ourselves, including Chief Hope. The potential for remobilization or additional movement of that heap leach was identified as a risk. We talked very briefly about the sort of mitigations or things you would have to do on the ground to limit the impacts of that. We also talked a little bit about what might be possible to prevent that happening.
An expert hired by the government says a steep slope immediately behind the existing slide area will come down. It's just a question of whether a heavy rain will trigger it or if Victoria Gold can figure out how to do it in a controlled manner. The cause of the slide last week still hasn't been confirmed. Officials say it's still too dangerous to get up close to investigate. Jackie Hong, CBC News, Whitehorse.
You just heard there from Jackie that there are still no answers on why this happened or how. A frustrating reality for the chief of the First Nation of Na-Cho, Nyäk. So Dawna Hope decided to go see the site herself, and she gave us exclusive access. As the CBC's Callie McTavish tells us, Hope is frustrated with the government's response and sad about the long-term effects on her people's traditional territory.
Seeing the heap leach facility there.
Looking out over the landslide, Chief Dawna Hope of the Na-Cho, Nyäk says she feels a tremendous amount of sadness.
I feel I have a responsibility to my citizens. They put me in this position as chief to look out after their interests, their values, and to ensure that we can continue our cultural ways. And incidents like this end up pushing us out of those areas that we once were.
The Na-Cho, Nyäk's grayling fishery is located on Haggart Creek, just downstream from the mine.
And that's one thing that's really tough to portray to our citizens, is that just because the water looks clean doesn't mean that it is clean.
She says her people are mourning the loss of their connection to the land as if a relative had died.
As a citizen that uses the land, how do I trust the land now? How do I trust the land to provide me the subsistence life that I'm guaranteed within our final agreement?
The nation has asked for a moratorium on all mining on their lands until a land use policy is in place. At the tech briefing, Minister of Energy, Mines and Resources John Stryker said they were not able to develop a land use plan because the other nations of the territory had not agreed to it.
This couldn't be farther from the truth. The Northern Tutchone nations tabled a letter of intent in 2020 regarding the Northern Tutchone region land use plan, and Yukon government flat out said no.
Still, she says she sees the economic value of mining to her citizens and to Yukoners as a whole.
Our First Nation has never wanted to stop mining altogether. We recognize we need it, but we do insist that it needs to be done sustainably and responsibly into the future.
Victoria Gold Corps has put out a statement saying they have found no cyanide in the water samples they have taken. In the same statement, they say their lenders have issued a notice of default. In the event they are unable to pay their loans, the Yukon government has assured they have made $104 million available. Callie McTavish, CBC News, Mayo.
As you just heard from Callie, Victoria Gold says its testing found no traces of cyanide, which directly contradicts what the Yukon government found in its testing, cyanide. So which one is it? Yukon Mines Minister John Stryker explains.
I think that we need to understand that what our experts were telling us is that we need a lot of samples. We need a lot of samples over time. We need a lot of samples in different locations. I use the analogy for us of COVID. There can be some false negatives. There can be some false positives. And it's as you get more and more information that we will get a clearer and clearer picture of what it's looking like. And so, and I think I said this yesterday to the media, if you see a sample that says, no, you don't have cyanide, that doesn't mean that the risk is gone. This is a serious and significant slide. Over time, we will need to do a lot of monitoring to understand how, where, and when those potential contaminants are moving through either the surface or the groundwater. Seeing no cyanide at one point in time doesn't mean that there aren't or other constituent elements that we're concerned about. It doesn't mean that you can't keep looking.
That was Yukon's Minister of Energy, Mines and Resources explaining why water samples from the landslide area could have contradictory results. A broken strap caused last week's fatal helicopter crash in Fort Good Hope, Northwest Territories. That's according to the Transportation Safety Board of Canada. Luke Carroll has the details.
The helicopter crash that led to the death of pilot Tom Frith was caused by a strap breaking shortly after takeoff, and that led to the rotor blades detaching from the helicopter.
It's called a tension torsion strap, and it's basically a device that holds the majority of the rotor blade onto the main rotor head, and it's supported by 2 pins, and the strap itself had failed.
After the crash occurred, several jurisdictions across Canada grounded their Bell 212 helicopters out of precaution. Lee says upon learning that it was the strap that broke, he informed various organizations across Canada and the US to let them know that the Bell 212 was still safe to fly. And it was up to individual operators if they wanted to ground their helicopters that had that particular type of strap. This crash is similar to another one that occurred exactly 3 years earlier. On June 28, 2021, another Bell 212 helicopter in Alberta involved in wildfire suppression crashed, which resulted in the death of the pilot. In that case, the issue also involved the tension torsion strap.
The one 3 years ago, one of the pins, which was made from an incorrect material, had failed, and then that's what resulted in the blade leaving the head. So in this case, the pins are okay, but it's the strap that's in between them that failed.
Lee said the TSB will be investigating the broken strap at a lab in Ottawa to determine why it failed. Luke Carroll, CBC News, Yellowknife.
The Premier of the Northwest Territories visited the crash site in Fort Good Hope yesterday. RJ Simpson spoke with community leaders and some of the crew that were first on the scene. He says everyone there is feeling the loss of Tom Frith. The helicopter pilot was fighting the wildfire believed to be caused by an abandoned campfire. In an interview with the CBC today, Simpson sent a strong message to people who have campfires out on the land.
It's a tragedy, and it goes to show that You know, these are fighting fires. It's serious business. We had a death last year. We have a death this year. And so I just want everyone to keep that in mind when they are out on the land, and just to ensure that you're putting your campfires out, you're doing everything you need to do to ensure that we don't run into more of these situations.
NWT Premier R.J. Simpson also visited the burn sites surrounding Fort Good Hope and stopped by Norman Wells. That's where most of the evacuees from the wildfire are staying. He says he wanted to show his support and meet with them. Simpson says the government will reach out to local businesses when things calm down to discuss potential federal supports.
Does public transit really need more police officers? And so this is it.
Welcome to the Greenbelt.
It is now believed that Titan was destroyed. It makes sense that they get a larger share, or does it?
All of this, just single detached homes.
Yes.
What do we know? How is that even possible? Well, with a little bit of help, I think we can explain it.
About that with Andrew Chang. Watch free on CBC Gem.
When we see Team Canada on the world stage, we're witnessing pure greatness. What we don't see is their struggle. We don't see Maggie McNeil navigating her anxiety, Shea Gilgeous-Alexander getting cut from his high school team, or Ellie Black hearing she's just too old to compete. What we don't see makes us who we are. We're all bravely facing the odds in our lives, and our bravery is our victory.
I'm such a fan of this show.
Listen to the podcast, Q with Tom Power.
The story itself is so unbelievable. The industry wasn't set up for me to thrive in.
The presence I feel now is not something that I believed to be possible in the past.
So many people thought I couldn't do it. They doubted me.
I felt like I ripped my whole heart out.
I didn't realize how formative 25 to 30 would be.
I have to kind of repress my own self-doubt.
You're one of my favorite interviewers, so I was pumped.
Get out of here.
Q with Tom Power. Available now on CBC Listen or wherever you get your podcasts.
This is unbelievable.
The heart and soul of any city is best served on a plate. Très bon, merci.
I have some women to tell you about. You don't know them, but you will.
Thank you for choosing Plan B.
Tell me what I need to do to save my family.
Please enter your date of travel.
I can't do this anymore.
If you could go back, change things, would you do it?
The Canadian Coast Guard has issued an official warning for boaters who use the Mackenzie River in the NWT. It says extreme caution is needed due to low water levels. The low levels are also impacting the Coast Guard itself. It can't provide some on-the-water responses like it normally would, and it has not been able to provide some navigational markers. Officials are warning boaters to plan their trips carefully.
Just that we're working with both the government of the Northwest Territories and the commercial partners in monitoring the water levels to ensure that we can do our best to keep everybody safe. This has an impact as we at the Coast Guard have not been able to tend the buoys and maintain navigational aids as we usually do.
2 vessels are changing their routines as a result of the conditions. The Canadian Coast Guard Service Dumit will operate from Inuvik to Tuk on the Mackenzie River. The CCGS Ekaloo will stay in Great Slave Lake. Boaters are encouraged to share trip plans with others and wear life jackets. The estimated cost of the Canadian Coast Guard's polar icebreaker project has gone up again. That's according to a financial update from the Parliamentary Budget Officer. The 2 new polar icebreakers are now expected to cost $8.5 billion, which is 15% more than the previous estimates made in 2021. The project to replace the current aging fleet has been plagued with delays, like contract negotiations. Retired Army Colonel Pierre LeBlanc says the country can't afford to keep pushing back the delivery of the new ships.
If the ship cannot be delivered, the old one cannot be taken out of service. But it's so old that the cost of fixing it now becomes prohibitive. then you have to maintain the ones that you have to be able to maintain those essential services.
Construction for the first of the 2 new icebreakers is set to begin later this year. It's expected to start sailing by 2031. But with every year of delay, the Parliamentary Budget Officer estimates an additional $260 million in costs. Extreme weather has devastated this year's season in British Columbia's fruit farms. Trees have been killed, yields have been ravaged, and livelihoods are under siege. The CBC's Brady Strachan reports.
So this is table grapes. We planted these this year.
Jennifer Diol is trying to salvage the growing season. There used to be trees in this field that grew the world's largest peach until an unprecedented cold snap this winter killed them off.
It's very tough. Like, if anything, farmers are very resilient, but we're still humans at the end of the day, and this is our livelihood.
BC has the most fruit farms in Canada. In a good year, orchards are loaded with crops like cherries and nectarines. But extreme weather the last few years has hit growers hard, from a record-setting heat dome to this year's cold.
These are just going to die in the heat, too. They won't survive.
Sukhdeep Brar planted this orchard with his father 30 years ago. Golden peaches once grew in abundance. Now the branches hang lifelessly.
There's nothing left. There's nothing left here, nothing left anywhere.
Brar says he's getting calls every day from growers in the same situation. The mental strain is taking a toll.
We all deal with it. We don't talk about it in our community, but I think we need to start.
The BC government is trying to help, giving growers money to replant climate-hardy trees. But that doesn't change things this summer.
The bigger problem is getting through this year. You know, a lot of farmers have a lot of payments to make.
And these are coming from a grower that we've worked with for 10 years out of a soy use.
Only about a third of Okanagan cherries survived this year, but there are no peaches at all.
These are the Georgia peaches.
Janae Oliver had to import these ones from the U.S.
We just have to change. It's kind of that desperate times calls for desperate measures. Let's go.
Farmers are scrambling to pivot. This farm usually relies on tourists picking their own fruit. Now it's holding farm tours to bring people in.
Farming is kind of like that. You get through those bad years, and I know my grandparents have been through harder years than this.
Oliver is hoping buyers will shop local this summer. She says this year, more than ever, farmers need all the support they can get. Brady Strachan, CBC News, West Kelowna.
Applications for U.S. visas are facing a major backlog, causing issues for thousands in Canada who need them to travel south of the border. Wait times for an appointment can range from months to years. And now some travelers are risking scams and paying hundreds of dollars to jump the line. Shayna Luck has that story.
I check it every day and every time.
Nathan Chen is trying to get an appointment at a U.S. consulate. He's an international student and wants to visit the States, but he needs a visa. Many people are waiting up to 2 years for an appointment. The earliest Chen could find is in 2025.
So you're planning to pay one of these ads today?
Yeah, I want to try it.
The wait times have generated an online industry that claims to help people jump the queue. It's easy to find online advertisers promising to get people faster appointments. That was tempting for Chen.
I want to know what was happened and what it will be if I pay that service.
He invited CBC News to watch the transaction, which cost more than he was expecting at $300 Canadian.
Oh my God.
Once Chen paid the money, he had to hand over his U.S. account information, allowing a third party to rebook him if earlier appointments become available. This is an issue around the world, according to researchers in Germany who've labeled it scalping.
Everywhere, whenever you have a big over-demand for these public services, scalpers find a way to kind of generate profits for it.
But in the past year, the U.S. State Department has heard from people in Canada who did what Chen did and lost their money and their accounts.
That's when we typically hear about it, when the applicant realizes that they no longer have access to their account, that the scammer has changed the password, and so then they're stuck.
When we asked, the advertiser said they've rebooked a few thousand appointments in Canada this year, but they wouldn't reveal more details. Chen found an earlier appointment himself with the help of a friend. And after complaining to the website that hosted the ad, he got his money back. Shayna Luck, CBC News, Halifax.
The former U.S. Embassy in Ottawa looks a lot different this July 4th. After years of planning, the building at 100 Wellington Street is now home to an exhibit showcasing First Nations, Inuit, and Métis culture. Free tours are taking place throughout the rest of the year, and the CBC's Olivia Stefanovich got the chance to go on one.
Thanks so much for joining us, Riley. So you're a summer student working here at 100 Wellington. Can you show us the Métis exhibit?
Yes, I can. So welcome to 100 Wellington. We start off here with introducing who the Métis people are. It's mostly tourists walking in and out of this building, so it's good for us to kind of have that introduction.
Yeah.
You come here, we have a small interactive piece on the floor. This was my addition. I'm a Métis jigger. And so we have a little demo spot in here.
Okay, you can learn how to jig.
Exactly,
okay.
Exactly. That's
Great.
why I'm here. We have the beautiful Christy Belcourt. Of course, she has her own wall.
Okay, the artist, yeah.
Yes.
And she just received the Order of Canada.
She did, and her own Canada Post stamp.
Wow.
Yeah.
Amazing.
So we're followed here to Louis Riel. We call him the leader of the Métis just because he was a huge activist for the Métis people. He's an important part of our history. This is the old House of Commons chair. He never got to assume his seat. He was being charged for treason, and as a traitor to Canada for fighting for the Métis people, they wouldn't let him in Parliament. And
Wow.
so now the ghost of Louis Riel gets to sit in his chair and overlook Parliament.
So this is the actual seat from the House of Commons from Centre Block that he would have sat in if he was able to come to Ottawa and serve as an MP.
Yes, so part of their whole, I guess, redesign, they were able to get some of the old chairs out, and we got it here.
Wow. And as you know, a young Métis woman, I just wonder what it means for you to be here to teach people about your culture.
I think it's super important to have this space, especially as the old U.S. Embassy. We now kind of have our own Indigenous embassy. We get to represent our people right across from Parliament. I think that's an important place for people to have, especially for tourists to have downtown.
Okay. Well, thank you so much for showing us the exhibit. And
Thank you.
Let's catch up with Catherine to check out the other parts.
Yes, it's a great section.
Okay, thanks so much.
Thank you.
Thanks for taking the time, Catherine, to show us this part of the exhibit. So you've been open throughout the summer, and this is the first time you're having the full exhibit on display throughout the summer?
That's right. We opened our doors for the summer on National Indigenous Peoples Day.
Wow. And how significant is that?
It's a major significant event to be open to the public, to be able to share our culture, our Inuit history here, our land and our stories, especially being in this particular building given to Indigenous peoples and being so close to Parliament that we have a lot of inquisitive people who are just wanting to learn more.
Wow, and there's a huge map here where people can learn more. Can you talk about this?
Absolutely. So Inuit Nunangat means the Inuit homeland. So we have 4 regions across Canada that are Inuit communities. So we have 51 communities across Canada in 4 different regions, and each region has leadership who are on our board. So there's our governance structure over here too, which shows the unbroken line of democracy from our Inuit communities all the way up to our leadership at ITK.
Wow, so a rich culture here. And who are you mostly getting who come in this space?
We've had everyone from the Lieutenant Governor General of Ontario come through, from MPs,
okay, so dignitaries.
Tourists, dignitaries, students who come through, families who want to learn more about just Indigenous people in Canada, period.
Okay, and there's a video here. Can you walk us through this portion of the exhibit?
Absolutely. As you know, Inuit culture is really tied to our land and our use of our community spaces. And so we invite people to hop on our Komatik, which is our sled used for travel. We've interpreted it as a bench so you can see our stories from on the land.
Nice.
So the Inuit Nunangat Tamanganit video project has over 100 videos from across Inuit Nunangat. They're short, about 3 to 5 minutes. And Inuit Nunangat Tamanganit means Inuit homeland from time immemorial. So it really shows how we've used, enjoyed, and lived off this land since inception.
And that is Northbeat for tonight. For news anytime, go to cbc.ca/north. Thank you for watching. I'm Megan Roberts. Have a good night.
Sports is life. It's clear cut. Everything's out in the open. There's nowhere to hide. I had to prove myself more than anyone else.
You must be so proud of your son. He's gonna go pro. The sky's the limit.
There's always a winner and a loser.
You cannot reach the sky in broken cleats.
Of course, I always want to be the winner. And I did reach the sky.
Norman Kwong, the first Chinese-Canadian professional football player, still holds records to this day. He retired from the sport in 1960 and later became Lieutenant Governor of Alberta.
Her particular skill set can be helpful to us.
She's a con artist.
Instead of using your talents for crime, you'll be playing on our team. I'm a cop.
You're not a cop. You have a badge?
Not yet.
A gun?
Soon.
Not ever.
I need to get off that boat and back to being a full-time detective, and you need to stay out of prison. The best way we do that is to keep our heads down and do as we're told.
90,000.
90,000.
The department will cover it, right?
No, they won't.
I was a grade 9.
Mr. Critch, you need glasses. Glasses? No, I just think the chalk is just a little soft.
One of these days, we're gonna have to grow up. But today is not that day.
I don't want us to get older either.
Son of a Critch. Watch free on CBC Gem.
Are you ready to be entertained?
Stand-up comedy best comedians from across the globe.
Oh, great.
An incredible lineup.
Canada.
Are you ready? Oh. Are you kidding me?
CBC's got the best in stand-up comedy.
That's pretty unbelievable, man.
It's a scam. It's a scam.
No way.
Ooh.
It's a bit spicy. It'll change your life.
Catch it all free on CBC Gem.
Well done.
Y'all give it up. Give it up. Give it up.
We're not gonna be here forever, right? Makes me want to make some changes, maybe a big one.
Your family can't take much more.
Anyone in your life know you're doing this?
Never really a good time to stir the pot.
I did not know what my future would look like.
The industry wasn't set up for me to thrive in.
I didn't realize how formative 25 to 30 would be.
I was so excited when they said I got to do an interview with you.
Q with Tom Power. Available now on CBC Listen or wherever you get your podcasts.
So you want to watch CBC News Explore, a new kind of news channel. Here's how to find us. We're on the CBC News app, on CBC Gem, and on your smart TV. Stream anytime. It's always free. CBC News Explore.
News you can trust, when you want, where you want. Download the free CBC News app.